I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network. The Democrats are not playing around when it comes to the sacred obligation that is the full faith and credit of the United States. When Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, sent a letter at the end of last week to the weakest Speaker of the House in United States history, MAGA extremist Kevin McCarthy, explaining that the debt ceiling would need to be raised from its current limit based on what was previously passed. It was about $31.4 trillion, and it needed to be raised so the United States would not default on its debt and continue to operate and satisfy its obligations. The MAGA Republicans were salivating that they could use that to try to hold our nation hostage to pursue huge cuts against the United States military, against Social Security, against Medicare, and against many other very vital social programs and other programs that are so critical here in the United States of America. And Democrats just aren't having it. The Democrats saying, look, we are not going to be negotiating with terrorists. Maybe Kevin McCarthy is willing to negotiate with terrorists and to sell shares of himself, or rather promise shares of the United States of America, our government, our economy, our freedom, our Constitution, to these radical MAGA extremists. But Democrats don't play that game. Okay, Democrats are not pulling McCarthy. You know, one of the things that we've learned was that one of the deals that McCarthy cut to finally win the speakership after 15 roll call votes was an agreement that he would be okay, that he would allow the United States to default on its debt. And look, the Tea Party MAGA Republicans, or the precursor to the MAGA Republicans back in 2011, brought us down that route. The threat of the default on our debt caused a downgrade in the United States credit, and the ramifications were felt many years thereafter. And this is yet another path that MAGA Republicans appear to want to go down, times multiples of what they did with the Tea Party extremism nonsense. And look, as I mentioned, Democrats aren't having it. Let me play this clip right here. This is of President Biden at a speech that he gave on Monday, just calling out the Republicans and saying, look, these people who increased the deficit by $7, $8, $10 trillion under Donald Trump, tax cuts for the billionaires that just could not be paid for. There was no plan to pay for it. And by the way, MAGA Republicans didn't care about the debt ceiling when it came to Donald Trump at all. They were willing to run up the debt, run up the deficit as much as possible if it favored billionaires and harmed working class and hardworking Americans. But here Biden's like, look, these MAGA Republicans, they're fiscally demented. They're not fiscally conservative. Here, play this clip.
You know, you're going to talk about big spending Democrats again? Guess what? I reduced the deficit last year $350 billion. And this year, federal deficit is down $1 trillion plus. Hear me, that's a fact. And there's going to be hundreds of billions reduced over the next decade. But so what? These guys are the fiscally, they're fiscally demented, I think. They don't quite get it.
And here's President Biden in the same speech basically saying, look, this is what the MAGA Republicans want to do. You don't have to trust me. Just listen to what they're saying. They want to have this sales tax on everything so that they could allow billionaires to not pay any, income tax, and for billionaires and major corporations to get away with not being taxed at all. They're coming for the working class. They're coming for the middle class. They're coming for hardworking Americans to favor billionaires. It's what they're doing. I mean, it's right in front of us, people. Here, play this clip from President Biden.
They want a national sales tax. Now, let me say this again. I know if I said that, it sounds like, what's Biden making up here? They want to raise tax in the middle class by taxing thousands of everyday items, from groceries, gasoline, clothing, cutting taxes for the wealthiest, because they want to supplant the money lost from taxes on the millionaires and billionaires with a sales tax on virtually everything in the country. What in God's name is that all about, other than what is obvious? They want working class folks to be paying another 10, 20% in their taxes, depending on where they live and how they're spending the money. and they're going to reduce taxes for the super wealthy. Now, if we didn't see it, I think this is making this stuff up. If I told you in 2023 a party was going to run on a national sales tax, well, that's how they're starting their new term. Cutting taxes for billionaires.
And at the same time, President Biden is saying that, I mean, Republicans are telling you what it is they are going to be doing. Look, this is MAGA Republican Rick Allen. He's a member of the House of Representatives. He's MAGA Republican in the House of Representatives from Georgia's 12th Congressional District, a very powerful member of the House within the MAGA Republican caucus. And here's what he said. He said, you know, when it comes to Social Security, he'd be up for eliminating it. He'd think people just need to work longer in life, but he's fine eliminating. He says it. These are his own words. This isn't puffery here. This is MAGA Republican Rick Allen echoing the sentiment by the Republican Party today to cut your Social Security. Play this clip.
What reason the age of retirement?
You know, that's interesting that you asked that question. People come up to me, they actually want to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's on the table, you're saying?
Well, you know, if people want to work longer, maybe you need to give them an incentive to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a way to solve every one of these problems, by the way.
Oh, no, I know.
And actually grow wealth at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes that right there.
And one of the things that the MAGA Republicans are talking about is if we don't raise the debt ceiling, they're talking about debt prioritization. What they mean is they want to focus on first paying back bondholders, specifically Chinese bondholders first, and paying off interest, and then letting other programs languish. And the reality is that you can't, we saw from 2011 that you can't try to target specific areas that you're going to put prioritization for. That's just not the way our government operates. So you're either going to fund it, you're going to accept the full faith and credit of the United States, or you're going to allow the United States to default. And all of these MAGA Republicans who root against the United States, who want to terminate our Constitution, that's the direction that they're going to be heading in. But this is what Democratic Senator Brian Shates recently articulated. This is what he said. And I think it's a very strong position. He's echoing what Democrats are saying. And he goes, quote, "In exchange for not crashing the United States economy, you get nothing." This is what he told the Daily Beast. You don't get a cookie. You're just a person doing the bare minimum of not intentionally screwing over your constituents for insane reasons. And at the same time he says that, you have Brian Deese, the director of the National Economic Council, and he said the following on Friday. He said, regarding the debt ceiling and regarding our ability in the United States to pay our bills, it's a sacred obligation. The full faith and credit of the United States and Congress is going to have to deal with the debt limit and do so without conditions, without games, and without putting our economy at risk. And, you know, you see those juvenile, weird and dangerous games the MAGA extremists played with when Kevin McCarthy was humiliated 15 times before securing the speakership, where they would nominate somebody else named Kevin so they could go, and I'm voting for Kevin, and then they would say the name of the other Kevin. Like, this is serious business. This is the full faith and credit of the United States. And I know MAGA extremists want to go into the cocoon of their echo chambers and right-wing networks and propagandist networks to spew the stoves and the purple M&M and all of this. But this is very serious business here. And look, pull up the letter that Janet Yellen sent. This is the letter from January 13, 2023, saying, "Dear Speaker McCarthy, Public Law 117-73 increased the statutory debt limit to approximately $31.38 trillion on December 16, 2021. As you know, the debt limit is the total amount of money that the United States government is authorized to borrow to meet its existing legal obligations, including Social Security and Medicare benefits, military salaries, interest on the national debt, tax refunds, and other payments." Note, she almost says that like, you don't know, McCarthy. Like, I don't even think you know what the debt ceiling is, but let's talk about what it is. And then she goes, I'm writing to inform you that beginning on Thursday, January 19, 2023, outstanding debt of the United States is projected to reach the statutory limit. Once the limit is reached, Treasury will need to start taking extraordinary measures to prevent the United States from defaulting on its obligations. The two extraordinary measures Treasury anticipates implementing this month are, and then she goes into what they are right there, and then she talks about how presidents and Treasury secretaries of both parties have made clear that the government must not default on any obligations of the United States. And as noted, Treasury secretaries in every administration over recent decades have used these extraordinary measures when necessary. Yet the use of extraordinary measures enables the government to meet its obligations only for a limited amount of time. It is therefore critical that Congress act in a timely manner to increase or suspend the debt limit. Failure to meet the government's obligation would cause irreparable harm to the U.S. economy, the livelihoods of all Americans, and global financial stability. Indeed, in the past, even threats that the U.S. government might fail to meet its obligations have caused real harms, including the only credit rating downgrade in the history of our nation in 2011. And so, in no uncertain terms, Treasury Secretary Yellen is telling Speaker McCarthy, enough with the games. I'm putting you on notice. And Democrats are saying the same. We're putting you on notice. We're not allowing you to hold us hostage, and we're not negotiating with our hostage takers so that our hostage takers can fund the United States government. This is a strong Democratic Party now that's pushing back with the right messaging and with the right actions. And they're saying there's nothing to talk about. There's nothing to talk about. And we are going to expose you in each and every step if this is the way you're going to go. Already, we see that the approval rating for these MAGA extremists in Congress is tanking beyond anything. I mean, people hate these clowns, these MAGA Republican clowns in Congress, and we're going to call them out in each and every step here on the MeidasTouch Network. And I'm glad we have Democratic leadership. I'm glad we have a President Biden who's just calling them out and just saying, look, these people they're not fiscally conservative at all. They're the exact opposite. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit the subscribe button. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers thanks to you. And in addition, check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Patreon.com/MeidasTouch. We have a lot of exclusive content there you'll enjoy. But most importantly, it helps grow this independent media platform. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas.
At MeidasTouch, we are unapologetically pro-democracy, and we demand justice and accountability. That's why we're spreading our message to Convict 45. That's right, gear up right now with your Convict 45 tees and pins at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.